bring them up to the stage now, and we'll be moderated by Simon, so we'll have him up here as well. So we'll give them a hand in a moment, but they, of course, gathered many, many questions over the past couple of months. So those on the live stream and those here in person, they're going to have a great opportunity to talk through those because they're very common questions that I think we're all wondering. So they're going to go through that first, and then I would say it's probably going to be, 45 minutes or so, and then we're going to hit to live questions that we'll have here, and then also taking live questions on the stream. All right, so we'll be doing that as well. And without further ado, let's welcome them up. So give them a hand. Well, come on up. Check, check, check. So we have 2 mics that will pass around.
We'll share it.
Yeah. You want Simon first there? Simon? Yeah.
Okay.
And then if you guys need to scoot around or maybe Wes and Simon switch, just in case we can't get in the corner.
Okay.
Okay. All right. You do the middle. Okay. Do the first one.
Okay, awesome to be up here with you guys. I think there are many questions from the community, especially in the past weeks on Twitter that we saw, and I think we will dive into them now. Let's start with a simple question for you.
Maybe before we start, we'll say
you
a few words.
You want to introduce yourself? Yeah,
we could dive right in. I know there's a lot of good questions lined up. But first of all, thank you all for joining. Terrific place to host ThetaCon, right? You know, Vegas is entertainment capital. I'm super excited. I know the whole team is super excited to be here. And you know, we'll be sharing a lot of stuff. Hopefully, a lot of new things. And Jay takes the center spot. It's his first ThetaCon in person. Do you want to say a few words?
First, we'd like to thank everyone for your support. So this is my first time joining ThetaCon in person. So have a great day since this morning. So hopefully, so this will be a great ThetaCon, and thanks everybody for supporting from the beginning. So we really cannot be here without you. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll echo that. I see a lot of faces here that have been here since 2017, you know, the very beginning, basically, as long as we've been doing this. So really appreciate it, and let's jump right into some questions.
Awesome. Let's look at the market. How does the team feel about the crypto market overall and the future going into 2025? And what do you think are like market drivers?
The market? Oh, come on. Come on. We feel fucking fantastic, right? I mean, there's no doubt we're in a bull market, right? I think it's been a tough few years, right? I mean, 21, we're now 20, going to 25, 4-year cycle, right? And we look forward to 2029 now. I mean, 25 is going to be absolutely tremendous. I mean, we're really excited about obviously Trump and the new administration. We're really excited about a lot of changes in the SEC, as you guys know, and we'll get into that a little bit. That's super important for us, as you know, as a company, Theta, we are a U.S.-based corporation. So Theta Labs Inc. is a Delaware incorporated. We don't have a offshore foundation. We don't have anything. We back in 2017 we did a private token sale structure called SAFT, which is a structure for future tokens. We filed SEC exemptions, and all that is going to come together in a real nice way. And so I'm super optimistic going to 25.
Oh, yeah, just to add on top of that, so I just read in the news that yesterday that the coming administration just created a new position called the Czar for AI and crypto, right? So, and appointed David Sachs, who is an industry veteran for this position. So, yeah, so one thing got me really excited is that this is not just to oversee AI or crypto, but for both. So they're putting both in equal footing, right? So, which means that maybe the fusion of AI and crypto will be an important area, right, for the next 4 years or even more, for even longer, right? So then this is exactly our focus, right, Web3 and AI. So, yeah, so I think this will be really good for the entire crypto and for Theta.
Yeah, even besides these positive moves that you're talking about that are being implemented, to me, it's the most important thing is getting rid of the chilling effect that the last 4-8 years have had on crypto, because just the threat of regulatory action often freezes out new investors from coming in, or institutional investors that don't want to get involved until there's that regulatory clarity. And we've experienced that many times ourselves as Americans, both personally and as a company, where investors don't want to deal with you if you're in the US. Partners don't want to necessarily work with you. We've been debanked and had to find new banks several times. And we're in a good place now on it, but it's a lot of stress, and a lot of this is a drag on being able to actually build product. So we feel like that cloud is being lifted now.
Awesome. When we are on investors, and probably a lot of Americans here are questioning when US exchanges, when Coinbase.
You gotta start with number question being when Coinbase? All right, okay. So it's top priority for us. We're talking to all the major US exchanges. Can't tell you who, can't tell you when. It's gonna be top priority in 2025. We're gonna be listed in US exchange. Now, having said that, a little bit of background and context, right? So this is something that we haven't really set out in the past AMAs. Again, a lot of things changed in our opinion and in our legal counsel's opinion specifically. We spent so much money with our lawyers, you can't believe. I mean, if I had a second job, I'd be a lawyer, right? Over the years, and they helped us really structure our original token sale in a really proper way with the SEC exemption that we filed, something called 506B and 506C, all the way through the last few years. And we were this close. You remember, we did our integration with Coinbase, Rosetta API. This is announced, I think, in the past AMA. For various reasons, we did not list at that time. But you know what? I think 25. This is a perfect timing. I think we're going to massive bull market. I think Theta, I think Bitcoin is sort of in this state right now that's in a little plateau, but I think it's going to plateau again between 150 to 200. I think, you know, if Theta is sitting at somewhere between 6 and 7, and then if we're able to, then at that point, you know, organize and, you know, a lot of things out of our control, but if the timing works out nicely, we're sitting somewhere around 10, and we get listed, I think that's going to get us to the next level. So I'm super excited. So when Coinbase? Oh, and one more note. I don't necessarily think that, and I don't know at this point, but may not necessarily be Coinbase being the first one. So, well, I know I like Robinhood. I mean.
Awesome. I think that's great news, and we're all looking forward to the announcement sometime next year. One question that came, I think, a lot up on Twitter was, does Theta sell its token on exchanges like Binance, and how do you manage your treasury?
These are really tough questions, but they're good questions. You know, as you know, I mean, we're a company. Of course, we have expenses. We have a lot of partners, and you heard from some of those partners today. And obviously, we do need to raise funding the way fiat, because you got to pay in fiat, right? But the answer is that Theta, and this is really important for, especially I think, sort of the Twitter space and for the online communities, we never sell tokens directly on Binance, period. We don't. The way that we execute our sales is all through OTC, and in majority of cases, their tokens are vested between 12 to 36 months. So whenever you see tokens that flows into a Binance account, the reason it goes to a Binance account or to an exchange account is to protect the downstream investors, so you cannot see who those people are. So the assumption that just because our tokens flow into an exchange doesn't necessarily mean it's being sold within the next 10 minutes. So, and I think that's really important to kind of set that record straight. And those distributions, you know, goes out over a rated, period on a schedule, and that's really important to us. And a big part of that is so that it really smooths out. I mean, we don't want to have those spikes in trading where there's a massive sell at one particular time. So that's what we do.
Great. I think we were able to clarify a lot with that. Now a bit more technical for GE maybe. How does the booster utilization score work? And we saw some movement there up and down. Maybe you can elaborate on that.
Yeah, so I know maybe some of the community members, they'll keep an eye on that, checking in every hour or so. So we might see some up down, may have some nervous about that. But what happened is that it basically depends on three factors, right? The first being the uptime, second being the GPU utilization, and the third is the video memory utilization, right? So we take those numbers in real time, and then have a formula to combine all these three factors. So I know that on Twitter I saw some posts and some community member commented that at some point they see a drastic decrease, right, of the score. And then that was because at one point we expanded our network, right? So expanded our resource pool. So inevitably, with the same amount of customer at a point, then the utilization went down a bit. But as we continue to onboard new customers, we expect that this will be in an upward trend. And also at one point we did a small tweak so that the score will reflect more accurately the actual usage. So with that changes, then I think the number will be become more smooth and more consistent. So that which means that the reward you got from the booster, right? So it will be higher than during those time that you see a drastic change. Yeah. So that's the idea.
Awesome. Yeah, with you just mentioned the customers onboarding that you did over the past weeks, the announcements. How do universities or also other customers benefit us all, the token holders?
No, that's really good question, right? A lot of questions around. As you know, we've focused in the academia space, starting from South Korea, just because it's a very concise. It's a smaller country, of course. It's highly advanced from a technical standpoint, but also values education. So word of mouth is really important there. So we started academia there, expanding to the U.S. and other parts of the world. That continues to be a super important part of our three-pronged strategy, which I'll talk about in a little bit. But the question that came up is, how does that benefit all of us, right, in the community that are token holders? Our plan moving forward, our plan is to essentially the customers, the university is paying fiat primarily, although we did roll out the TFL option. And so there's been at least a few universities that have inquired about how can they purchase TFL, which happens in Korea. It's far easier. I don't know if you guys are familiar. Koreans can easily access our tokens, both Theta and TFL and Upbit and Bitsum. And so they're able to purchase that and get that discount, right? So it's a discounted for usage of the Edge Cloud platform. But for any fiat payments, we have operating expenses, which includes the GPU infrastructure. So we do not own the GPU and the hardware. Where we work with partners, we secure them. Some on demand, some we reserved over longer time periods. But any operating profit that we drive from Edge Cloud, the company purchases TFL. And that's the plan moving forward. So if we're able to expand our revenue, let's say if we expand our revenue on the range to whatever, 1 million, 10 million, 100 million, whatever operating profit from that, it'll be directed back to TFL. So that's sort of a very direct benefit to, again, to TFL and to, maximizing the utility of TFL. You want to add?
Yeah. And yeah, you probably have seen that we've added the feature that you can pay the TFL and get a discount on Edge Cloud. That's obviously a first step, but we want to, over time, encourage more and more customers to just use TFL directly. That's the intended purpose of it. We recognize today that's a little tougher for some customers. We don't want to rule someone out who wants to use fiat, so that's why it's a workaround for us to purchase it. But combined with the regulatory situation changing and just in general crypto gaining more legitimacy, someone just posted in the Theta Telegram earlier today that Amazon's shareholders are pushing for them to hold Bitcoin on their balance sheet. This kind of thing's become more and more normalized, and then hopefully we'll see a day where it'll be quite common for them to just buy TFL because that's what they use to power what they're building.
Great. Yeah. We saw the rollout of the mobile Edge node in September, and I think a lot of people are interested to know, what's the plan for the mobile Edge node, and when does Theta see it as being a highly used product by?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. The mobile and the Android Edge node is it's really part of our deep in strategy, as you guys have read, know. It's a big trend. decentralized infrastructure networks, which includes a bunch of IoT type devices, right? Most obvious one being mobile. A mobile device could be smart cars, could be refrigerators at some point, smart TVs, etc. And we've been and Jay could comment a little bit more about this. We've been in calibration mode. It's good to see those video object detection algorithms working well in these very short video clips. And it just turns out that one of our academia research partners, they have a very specific project with a corporate partner of theirs, which is in Korea, not to be named, but one of the biggest Korean conglomerates. And they are using AI models to what do they do? To monitor live streams of ocean surfaces to find clusters of tuna for tuna fishing, which is kind of interesting, right? But they use these live streams and they apply AI towards that to detect these areas so they can more efficiently deploy their boats and whatnot. So that's an example that's super exciting to us because it's directly related to sort of this calibration, this workload that we're pushing to the mobile device. And that's a really good use case if you think about it. I mean, you don't have to push the whole 2-hour long, we're not talking about a movie that's 2 hours long in 4K or whatever. We're talking about, you know, some motion surface that can be broken down into 5 seconds or 10 or 30, whatever length, so that each mobile device could effectively, you know, do that job and report that back and then reassemble the server and for results to be interpreted and so on and so forth. And that's really, really interesting. And that sort of just scratches the surface, I think. There's a lot more innovation. Maybe Jay can comment a little about, compression AI models and being able to run some of those generative AI. I mean, a lot of the stable diffusion, a lot of the text to image, for instance, can now be executed on the mobile devices. Of course, privacy, sensitive information. I'm sure you've heard from Ali and the Levita team. Those type of information where it's on the device and protecting the privacy of your personal information is really, really key. And all that forms a big part of our vision as we move forward.
Oh yeah, that's a great summary. So just on top of that, we are really seeing two trends, right? So first trend being the hardware of mobile is getting better, you know, year after year, right? And the second trend is that the most advanced AI model, you know, their size is getting shrinked. So of course you see that OpenAI keep on pushing, you know, larger and larger models, but there's a technology called distillation, which will distill a large model into a much smaller model to extend that it maybe one day be put on a mobile cell phone, right? So if that day comes, then your cell phone, you'll be able to do a lot more things than today. So be it a generative AI or be a chatbot or something. And Mitch also commented about privacy, right? So maybe that if you have your personal data stored on your cell phone, then so with the local model, then you can just process locally on your cell phone without leaking anything to anyone, right? So that will unlock a lot of potential applications and a lot of use cases, and that's not possible today. So yeah, we will continue to monitor all those two trends and see that at what point will be a good time to, you know, releasing some new features to be able to utilize those hardware and then to make, better utilization of this platform.
Yeah. Yeah, with Theta coming from video streaming, community members might ask themselves, is Theta just chasing the hottest crypto trend and copying other projects like with no real direction, like the AI part, or like do you have an actual?
Yeah, again, a super great question, right? Anyone that has been following us, you know, many of you that's been with us for many years, we certainly started in the video space with peer-to-peer sharing and sharing bandwidth. And as part of that, our Edge network, right? So that we launched, and you guys were part of that. And so we've basically expanded our use case. We realized that, you know, in the last 12, 18, and really when we started looking at the AI space back in 22, expanded use cases. And what we're seeing is that what's really interesting is, and I think you heard a little bit from Jerry and Andrea earlier today, sort of the three-pronged strategy we talked about really brings it together. So going to 25 is not just the academia that we're expanding to US and other parts of the world, but also professional sports. Professional sports is a huge opportunity and hugely interesting to us. It's really entertainment, right? If you look at like Las Vegas Knights, that's certainly the first pro hockey team that we're working with. We're talking to many others across all sorts of sports segments, including soccer and basketball, et cetera, and also international teams. And we're really excited about 25, being able to expand to global teams, right? Have global adoption, potentially hundreds of millions of fans. And then the third prong strategy is esports. We announced FlyQuest, which is the North America, the best team, right, for League of Legends. I won't give anything away, Kyle, but we are in conversations with many other professional esports teams, and absolutely fantastic. The integration into Discord and where really sitting in front of where the users are. So, what's interesting about all of these customers and adoption of our platform, it starts with AI just because it's strategic, right? That's what their executive management and their board is really focused. It's a driver for their business. Now, what's interesting across those two areas, professional sports, esports, is all about the live experience. So if you think about, it's about real-time, a live match that's streamed, that is on cable and on broadcast. And imagine if you were able to, interact with a chatbot that's highly engaging, highly interactive, and it's living inside Discord for gamers, or maybe inside a mobile app for one of our international soccer teams that's got almost 100 million monthly actives, and be able to follow the game around, along, and for the AI chatbot to have, play-by-play analysis, real-time basis, a goal that gets scored, and it's super exciting to be able to then reference that back to a knowledge base, all within a few microseconds for that data to then become available. For NFTs, for that special 5K, 5 kills on League of Legends, and for that to be minted into NFT, which scrolls to the bottom of the chatbot, and then be able to say, hey, this NFT that commemorates this particular goal that just happened, now costs 100 TFIO. The user will click on that, and most likely 99 million of those users aren't familiar with crypto or TFIO. Then they'll get another prompt, say, well, what is TFIO? How do I buy it? Boom, click. And for now, you go to Theta Swap, right, which our friend Open Theta, thank you, Simon, is now hosting. Primary reason for that to be hosted by Open Theta so that we can essentially provide an on-ramp, right, via credit card to purchase TFIO. Right? As again, Theta Lab Inc. as a US-based corporation, we didn't want to touch any fiat on-ramp or off-ramp, and so that now gives us the ability to do that. Now, if you put all that together, the live experience and generative AI applied to these video streams, these live matches, it comes a full circle, right? So this is where our video stack and our peer-to-peer video delivery will all effectively come together, and that's sort of the opportunity we see as we engage with the Vegas Knights or the next hockey team or next football team or esports team, and that's it's all really coming together. So we're just using this as a go-to-market strategy, and it's working. We're really excited.
I just wanted to add to that, to bring it back to the original question about whether this is chasing trends. I kind of take issue with that framing of it, because once we build a platform that can do lots of different things like Edge Cloud can, it's really just about meeting the demand wherever it comes. If that's what we're finding a lot of schools and enterprises want to use it for, we're not about to tell them that's not something we're going to focus on because it's not what we thought was originally going to be the most important use case. Things changed a lot in the last 2 years with respect to AI. And I was shocked, for example, when we talked to some of these professional sports teams, and it happened several times that our contact there is the head of AI for X NHL team. And they all have a head of AI or someone whose their only job is to understand how AI is going to be changing their business. So it's less going after that as a trend and not getting left behind, because it's clearly so strategic to potential partners.
Yeah, also I want to add a little bit on top of that. So about the tracing trend thing. We actually, when we start to build edge network, right? So we have the mindset that to build it to be generic as possible. That is why about 3-4 years ago we already published the white paper about edge computing, right? So if you still got some time to briefly skim through that paper, then it said nothing, not just the streaming part, but also offer it as a generic computing platform, right? So when we start to build edge network, we already have that kind of mindset. So which set a really good foundation for today, where we start building on Edge Cloud, which is another layer on top of that. Yeah, and then Edge Cloud also built, although with the AI streaming focus, but it's still generic purposes, and it can be able to handle sort of use cases.
That's incredible. Yeah, I think huge potential there, and connecting both. Yeah, with the next question, let's is I think a lot of people also I heard a lot of about it. It's about the hackathon. Why was such a large prize chosen, and then versus spending money on marketing and
Yeah.
maybe getting more devs outside the Theta community
Yeah.
into this.
Yeah, no, it's a very valid point. We're always trying to hone our approach as we do next hackathons, and I think that's valid. We saw some great new developer talent come into with this last hackathon. I would say the best yet by far, and so you'll see several of their presentations this week. And I think we need to double down on that. The structure of offering larger prizes does attract a lot of outside attention, but Simon and I have actually been having some great chats today about how to reframe that and combine it with other in-person events. I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves since it just was brainstorming, but next year and probably the very next hackathon, it's going to be much more focused on the in-person experience and drawing in developer talent to do a more traditional style hackathon in person, and then how to finance those and help fund those teams going forward. So yeah, it's valid, very valid question.
Yeah, and I was going to add to that as well that our conversation, both Google, both GCP and AWS were very keen to host those in-person hackathons and bring their community to Theta as well. So I think that will come together nicely.
That's incredible to hear, and hopefully we can get more and more developers on Theta in the coming years. Mitch, you mentioned on Twitter that there's an inflection point. Has it happened yet?
Inflection point or global adoption, right? No, seriously, I think I'm personally super excited where we are. I think global adoption will be 2025. I really feel that. You know, and I think a lot of crypto projects talk about that. You know, for us being in the entertainment space, being sort of the cross-section of AI and video and streaming, I think is driven by customers. We started in the academia space for obvious, very strategic reasons, right? And we know all the stories about Apple being in academia and all these other companies, or Facebook, and right, starting off. But for us, it's a vote of confidence, particularly in certain parts of the world where if you're working with the top local universities, that just lends itself when you start talking to corporates and to people in companies, they probably graduate from one of those top universities. So there's a very direct link in terms of trust and bringing these customers on board. Again, going to 25, we'll be announcing, we'll have deals that's in place. It hasn't been announced yet. We're very close on one very big one that unfortunately I would love to talk about. Super excited about those one, because whenever you're talking about getting in front of 100 million fans, that's where it gets interesting. Now, the challenge for us, the reason we started with the Vegas Knights is that they're a great team, and they draw somewhere around a little bit less than 1 million monthly active users on their website. And I know Jay and the team is monitoring as we speak, because I don't know if you guys know this. Do we even announce? I don't think we announced it. We went live on the Vegas Knights team on the website. So if you go to the website, you'll see it there. It's powered by Edge Cloud. And we can see the traffic that we're getting. Now, you know, when you go from that to 100x, right, to this particular team, that's a global fans all around the world. Vegas Knights just happens to be North America, right? It's hockey. It's mostly U.S. and Canada. But if you're talking about soccer, it's they're fans all over the world, right? Which means that it's really tough to be able to scale at that level across all those parts, not just from a AI and chatbot standpoint, but as we start engaging with these teams on sort of the video streaming side and the peer-to-peer and the delivery, and bringing that together with the NFTs and minting some of these, these exciting moments, right, on a real-time basis. That's video clips and sort of all that becomes super exciting, and that's global. I mean, to me, that's global adoption. I mean, that's where we want to get to. If the full circle, and then that point, then it really lends itself to start talking to them, really thinking about what's going to hold all those transactions together. Like, what ties them all together? Why do you need a subchain on Theta? And we would love nothing more than, someone like a Manchester United or, a Chelsea or whoever to, bring that together in some sort of a sub-chain that's powering all those transactions. To me, that's adoption. To me, that's global adoption. And, we do have, someone mentioned to me earlier, the World Cup is 2026, right? And I believe it's hosted somewhere around North America. So very exciting.
Yeah, that would be awesome. I'm definitely back as a big soccer fan in the US 2026 for the World Cup. There with the edge nodes, there have been multiple numbers floating around. How many there are, and how many are there? And are you running as Theta Labs any edge nodes?
Right, great question. So I do acknowledge that there's different numbers floating out there and cause some confusion. So the first number is that what you see on ThetaToken.org, that number, right? So it's somewhere around 10,000, right? So there's a number that is active currently at the moment, right? And then we also mentioned about there's a 30,000 edge node. So that is a monthly active edge node. So the monthly active and whatever currently active is not the same number, right? So some edge node goes on and goes offline, but accumulatively during a month, that is about 30,000. So, but any given moment is about 10,000. And then to the second part of the question, Theta Lab currently doesn't. We don't run any edge node at this point.
Yeah, let's stay with the edge nodes. Why have been there so rare updates to the edge node?
Okay,
And
yeah,
does this reflect the speed of development, or are you hiding something?
Great question. So, I think in the coming weeks we will have a big update. It will be an update, right? So, but it's primarily focusing on user experience improvement. So yeah, so we'll be coming in the next few weeks. But to the second part, so I think going towards the next year, towards 2025, I think we'll have more frequent updates. If you go back to look at Edge Cloud's white paper, right? So we lay down the three-phase strategy there. The first phase being to incorporate nodes from machines from the cloud providers. And the second part will be incorporating nodes from data center partners, right? And then the third will be from the community. So I'm happy to announce that we have already completed the first and the second phase. So now we not only have machines from GCP and AWS, but we also have high-end GPUs from different data center partners around the globe, and we are continuing to add more, right? So, but with that finished, then I think the next focus for us for next year is able to push into the third phase, where we will releasing edge node software, or are we still up in the air, but decide that whether we want to do it as part of a software edge cloud update, or will be a separate software, but I'm still deciding. But at least we'll have this more frequent software update, so that you can run those software on your computer, your laptop, your high-end gaming computer, and then this software will be able to run those containerized jobs. It could be some GenAI model to do text to image generation. It could be language models or something else, right? So with that, so we'll be able to harness the computation power from all over the globe, and use that to target some of the use cases that's best suited for a global network. For example, there may be some users from, let's say, Africa or South America, right? So they want to run some job and they want really low latency. So if we route that into some data center in North America, that means a very long latency and round trip time, right? So, but if we can find some local edge node in a close proximity, then maybe we can redirect the job to that node, so that they can get the response faster, right? So that will be our focus next year. So our current plan is that to be able to release a beta version in June 25, right? And then with a full release in the second half of the year. And then, of course, there would be, not to your point, that there's only 2 updates, right? So, but we have more than that. So before that, we'll release a couple, preview version, and we'll have a couple updates in between. And then in the beginning, we might start by selecting, inviting a selected group of smaller tester users. be able to release our software among the core users, and then to be able to test things out, and then to see any bug, any improvement we need to make, and gradually expand that to the entire community.
Yeah, so we invite you to participate. I think some of you participated in the, if you remember the pre-lead. You guys remember pre-edge node? What do we call it? Pre-lead edge node. Back a few years ago. I think we'll run something very similar. So appreciate all the time and the help you guys provided then. And the timing is perfect for us because as we continue to roll out some of these key partners that we keep talking about, a lot of that, again, if you think about it, if you have a sports fan that's sitting somewhere in South America, Brazil, let's say, where I was born, wouldn't it be great if that particular prompt, if that response to that particular chatbot prompt was served from that particular laptop that's sitting somewhere in the middle of São Paulo? That's powerful. That's really amazing, right? Or for a video clip to be processed via an AI job that's sitting somewhere in Australia, for instance, or wherever it is around the world. So yeah, very excited about that.
Yeah, I think these are huge updates. Yeah. Yeah, let's dive into the tokens. What are the plans to increase demand for Theta and T-Fuel?
How do we get the price to 100? Is that the question?
That's the plan.
I mean, we can give a snarky. It's there's a lot of things you can do in the short term to increase the token price, but ultimately, what it comes down to is just what all of us have been talking about: is driving real customers and users, both on the supply side for running edge nodes, like many of you in this room, and on the demand side for using the platform. And ultimately, you can play games, but in the short term to make marketing gimmicks, that kind of thing. But the only thing it's going to be is massive users and driving direct demand for the token. So that's what our job is to do, is to find those enterprise, academia, sports, all these verticals, and get these customers using EdCloud and creating demand for the tokens. Sure. Yeah, I think it's going to depend a lot on what exactly is the demand side of the jobs doing. Because, like, for example, right now, it's the most heavy use cases for the current edge code clusters. They need GPUs. So if that's typical of it, where it comes to like the smart TVs, like we've done some POCs with before, and they can handle that, then no reason not to. It's a little bit different equation than when we were looking at more of in a streaming context at that time, because then it was very low GPU or compute usage. But yeah, I mean we still believe in that route of getting in access, because then you can achieve a huge amount of scale, with one partnership instead of having to go out and do that with many different ones.
Yeah, okay. Then the third token, T-Drop. What are the plans? For T-Drop for the future?
Yeah, I might ask you yourself, considering there's some talk of Open Theta and how that can get involved. But well, I can speak more generally too. We still see it as there's a vision bigger here than just on Theta Drop as being sort of a more general transaction token. So that's on other platforms like Open Theta, others that we're looking to integrate into. And there's actually an idea we've been kicking around for some of the AI chatbots about how it could be used as a transactional token there, which you can see where if it's a popular one for, say, one of these sports teams and it's used thousands, 100,000 times in a day, then that can generate a big flywheel effect for T-Drop.
Maybe I can add a little bit of sort of the context and the vision that we're, it's extending. I guess what we're talking about is really extending the utility of T-Drop beyond just, powering a marketplace, right? Powering the NFT sales. Imagine certainly if it's an NFT which is minted in real time that captures that special moment, that special goal, or that special, 5K in League of Legends, and that's minted, it's presented within chatbot web users. They're right in front of the user, and they can purchase. Yeah, okay, maybe that's kind of follows the same current sort of scope, but in much broader user base. But also, you think about, if you're to extend, sort of these special moments and be able to create highlights, and for users to be able to collect them, and for users to be able to, then perhaps T-Drop could serve as that reward mechanism. And it's almost like the airline mile thing, right? Where you could, where a global fan who doesn't necessarily know anything about, about crypto in general, just the fact that they're collecting these things, and it's, it's a custody wallet, and it's, it's right there. And so that's kind of a lot of those things that we're thinking about as we were going to 25, because we want T-Drop to be front and center, to be the fan-facing element, right? Not necessarily as a payment token, that continues to be TFIO, right? As a payment token's utility, the key utility, but for T-Drop to be sort of that reward token, if you will, right? If that makes sense.
That sounds great. And on the Open Theta side, tomorrow we'll have an announcement then at my presentation. Yeah, I think Mitch, you already touched a bit on that. What's the plan for the meta chain, and is that still an important part in the overall strategy?
Yeah, meta chain is a super important part of our strategy, and it hasn't changed. We've so far we've had some great partners. You heard from our friends at POG and Levita and all of our subchain partners, and that continues to be what is interesting is that the opportunity is expanding, right? Like I mentioned earlier, when we're talking to these specific partners and customers, where we are first thinking about the solution, right? The end user, because remember, most of the people we talk to, they're sort of marketing folks, product folks within these sports organizations or esports. They're not very technical, right? So you can't go in and say, oh, you thought about doing a subchain, this is what it is, you can reduce your transaction fee from, they're not gonna understand, right? But if we're going in with, this is how you 10x your fan engagement and be able to interact and provide this highly, interactive chatbot. Oh, and by the way, we can easily tap into the live feed and creating these NFTs. Oh, this is interesting, right? It's getting interesting. And then, and by the way, there's all these transactions that's happening, that's floating around. You want that to be able to be tied to a specific wallet, right? I mean, custody wallet. So the user doesn't need MetaMask because nobody can figure out MetaMask. Then go, yeah, that makes sense. Oh, and guess what? To do all that, you kind of need a specialized chain to handle all those things, right? And that's where we introduce the constant meta chain. This is how we can help you build in conjunction with our friends at AWS, or actually more AWS than GCP. And you're a customer of AWS, and they'll go, yeah, we're already working with. Okay, great. So here's a template, and can get started, and that's the opportunity. I think this is where, hopefully in 25, this is where we see everything kind of coming together in a nice little sort of end-to-end sort of package adoption, really, right?
Great. Yeah. Yeah. So bit back to the money side. Theta Labs treasury, is that all staked to a validator nodes, or is this partly staked to Guardian nodes, or do you hold on the side just the Theta?
That's a really good question, and it's a very valid question. So no, all of the tokens that's held by Theta Labs Inc., right, which is Delaware C Corp, no outside foundation, is everything you see staked to our validators. So today it's exactly, my math is correct, exactly 90 million that's staked to our validators. As you know, every year we announce the unstaking of validators to fund our operational and our growth and marketing and our partners and all that. That typically happens around summertime, around July, August. We don't stake to any Guardian nodes. There's no tokens other than the hot wallet, which of course, as you guys, we talked about this earlier, you see these tokens flowing out of the hot wallet in some cases to exchanges right? And in some cases, of course, we do a lot of wallet maintenance and we shift things around. So just the fact that something went out of our main wallet into secondary wallets, it doesn't necessarily mean that that's flowed outside the organization, right? So that's where strategic and security reasons, and we rotate a lot of that as we go along the way. So the little bit to the unstaking part, one of the things that we may need to do, I think going to 2025, so that want to make sure we get this message out, is that we may need to unstake sooner than August of 25. And we'll, of course, we'll make that known to everybody for special reasons, and we'll just leave it at that.
Okay, we're looking forward to what you will announce. Yeah, to the bull market that we are in. these days render is ahead of us. Theta's, I think, around 60, like number 59, if I'm right. Do you believe that we can get back to the last bull market to number 10 or better?
Yeah, I saw this one from the submitted ones and wanted to pull it out because I thought that was funny and oddly specific. But yeah, I 100% believe that it's possible. I mean, I think if you look at what we're building and the users are starting to come onto Edge Cloud, I would argue there's a lot more justification today than there is than when Theta was 10, ranked number 10 in market cap before. So yeah, I think the potential is easily there. It just goes back to, again, the creating demand for the token. So we have to keep laser focused on the long term and what we're building for the platform. So we're not sitting here wondering, you know, where's the number 10 rank or number 5 rank with a bullseye on it. That just comes naturally if we're doing our job to create a very valuable network.
I want to know why did they say top 10? Why not top 5? I mean, why not the number 3? I mean, shit.
Top 10 is also could be number 1. It's still top 10. I think we have to hurry. Yeah, to also get additional questions outside.
I don't know. We need to
of
get
what
to the
I mean.
cocktails. Come on. We talk more outside, and you know.
Yeah, let's dive into some partnerships. Do you still, like with FedML, what is the partnership there? Like, do you still work together?
Yeah, just a little bit of context for some folks that probably most of you know, but we're really close to the FedML team. We're a shared investor, Camphor Capital, and you know, we were collaborating with them. There was an Edge job that was running for a little while. It's been paused. They're in the process of rolling out their Web3 strategy, and I don't know the details, and probably couldn't share a lot of details, but in the process of rolling out their tokens and sort of their forward-looking strategy. So we paused that, but they continue to be a super great partner, and we envision them to be re-engaging with us once they get through sort of this next phase of their growth.
Okay, awesome. Then can you talk on how GCP AVS partnerships are opening new opportunities for Theta?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, we were here, Jay and I were here with Andrea a few days ago. As you guys know, the AWS event was here, a big conference. You know, we're going to try to be as transparent as possible. And we met with their leadership team and the Web3 team. There's tons of opportunities. We're particularly, not just on the marketing side, marketing activation around the hackathons, but around some of their sort of next generation product offerings. They have a next generation GPU architecture that's called Trainium. Yes, Trainium. Super, super exciting. They are forging really aggressively towards sort of the academia to utilize that as a sort of a proof point and to move that into the traditional corporate and industry. And so that's one area that we're exploring some really interesting opportunities there. I think on that one, where we landed in that particular meeting is that they're really excited that we're about to close this massive professional sports organization partnership. And I think what we'll probably do is, in order to power those 100 million users, we'll probably partner with one of them. And right now we have to figure out whether that's AWS or GCP or Azure or one of the others. You know, to be able to globally support that many users, it has to be beyond what we have today, right? With certain levels, service levels agreements, et cetera, et cetera. But it's super bullish. It's super excited. Really happy to share there. And then, you know, and then moving into mid-25 with the timing with the beta of our decentralized edge cloud, we have an opportunity to start, you know, experimenting and start pushing some of those workloads to the edge, right? To all of you that's running your edge node. And that will be in conjunction. We want to do it carefully, right? Especially when you have a live product, you know, sitting in front of, integrated inside their mobile app that gets, you know, almost 100 million per month. We have to do it very carefully. But, you know, hopefully JE will be able to get this to work. And so, yeah, so the short answer, yeah, AWS is, lots of really exciting things happening there.
Awesome. Yeah, I think one last question from here, and then we will go to all of you. What is the status of the auto staking T-fuel that's locked in the elite booster nodes?
Oh, yeah, so I've been monitoring the amount of TFU locked, right, in that booster contract. Yesterday, when we check, is 200 million and 14, right, to 14 million. So quite a lot. So so an idea is that so currently those TFU just sitting there doing nothing. So, but I've been circling around this idea of what if we can stake at least part of this TFU onto some of the edge nodes, right? So that this edge node become elite edge node and start to generate staking returns, right? And then this return will go back to the smart contract and be able to distribute it to whoever locked their TFU into the contract. So this one will hopefully will be able to increase the reward by a few more percentage, right? So you'll be get really handsome reward if you lock your TFU into the elite booster. So we have been experimenting with the smart contract in the past few months. So the current status is that the testing with the smart contract, that step is completed, right? So this is the most crucial step in our testing process. But we will continue to test, including the back end and front end, the whole system. And we're hoping that in the coming weeks or months that we'll be able to roll that out, right? And then with the backend update and possibly to the earlier question, that another update of the edge node, so that you'll be able to get those return back when you withdraw your stake.
Awesome. I think yeah, as staker to the booster node, I'm looking forward to that, to this additional percentages to get. Yeah, I think we should get now to some community questions.
Wonderful, thank you guys. By the way, on the stream, there are a lot of fun conversations, so keep it up. It's pretty good. All right, while we are locating the first question, you're going to see Rob Feldman moving around, so make sure to get his attention. One from online just asked, and this is coming from the user Coin, with Theta using data center enterprise hardware, what will be the role of consumer-grade hardware edge nodes? So that came up maybe about 20 minutes ago or so.
Well, I think we kind of covered that, right? But just the short answer to that, right? This is a June release. This is a June release with the consumer grade edge node. Your PCs mostly, right? Some Linux and some will become part of the edge cloud architecture, right? And as Jay explained, that beginning June and going to second half of next year, we'll be able to take that incoming job, whether it's a video rendering job, whether it's an AI job, whether it's a chatbot that's powering one of these teams, or whether it's whatever it is, and be able to intelligently route that to your edge node if you're sitting in the middle of Sao Paulo in South America and you're trying to and you have a prompt coming from somebody in Brazil or somewhere around the world, and so that's where it all comes together, right?
Yeah, I'd like to also add on top of that is that we probably will have another feature coming out of Edge Cloud, which is the what we call the on-demand API for generative AI models, right? So currently, if you want to run a model in Edge Cloud, that you have to start a node, right? Start a node and then let it run, and then you can use the model there. But as soon as you launch the deployment, that you need to start to pay, right? So that's it has some cost implication for developers. So what we want to have is that be able to host those models in the edge network, so that when you integrate it with Edge Cloud, so you pay per use by a token or by whatever mean, right? So on demand basis. And then, so this actually create a question, a challenge for us is that what if we get thousands of developers, thousands of apps running on Edge Cloud? So do we have enough GPU to handle all these jobs, right? But I think the community node is a natural answer to that, right? Consider we have thousands of even more high-end GPUs in the Edge network. Then with that many application and many requests, then we can in parallel route all these requests to the proper end user node that can handle this request, right? So then this will be a great use case. Then we can not just pushing out a new feature, but connect that in the future with the edge node running on your laptop.
And in addition to that, that also answers a little bit of the question earlier, how does that benefit the token holders? So all those jobs which are served from your edge node, the platform will not take any cut of that. That will flow directly from the demand side, right? Whoever directly to you, right? And that's really, really important, right?
Hey, how's it going? I had a couple questions. The first, you mentioned a joke about MetaMask being difficult to find out. Is there any plans to kind of revamp the wallet experience on Theta? Because it is a little difficult as well. And then, how are you viewing the individual experience as you go forward? Is it one of these things where you're trying to have a few entities like sports teams that are kind of pumping out a ton of transactions and that kind of lifts all boats? Or is it you want to really empower users to go on an individual basis and kind of interact with the network? Like, how do you view that experience going forward?
Maybe I can answer the second part. So for us, the sort of the adoption path that's sort of the least friction, right, is in partnership with our partners, right, these sports organizations or esports gaming, because they're in front of, they have a fan base that's highly engaged, particularly around these live events, right? When there is a tournament happening, or whenever there's a championship game or whatever it is that's happening. So that's the opportunity for us to get in front of. Now, on an ongoing basis, the reason Vegas Knights has that on their website is that there are fans which may want to interact even when there isn't a game happening, right? Maybe they missed the game, so they go back and say, hey, what happened in this previous game, or some stats, or some, something interesting. So that's sort of our first major step. Now, after that, is there an opportunity for us to establish a direct relationship with the consumer, with the user? But I think that's where our thinking around, is there an opportunity to expand the T-drop utility to sort of this reward point system type thing, because then you draw that user back, right, to engage with you, sort of almost independent of the content or of the partner. And that sort of builds a little bit of that stickiness. And so that is interesting, and that's really interesting, right? So really then expanding T-drops to really be that glue that sort of brings these fans together, or these users together.
Yeah, and also there's a first part of question about the user experiences of the wallet, right? So yeah, absolutely. So even today, a Web3 wallet is designed only for the crypto people, crypto native people. It's kind of difficult for any outsider, right? So to use. But I think we do see some development in the industry. For example, in the Ethereum community, talking about wallet abstraction, so right, this the kind of concept. So we are constantly monitoring all those new ideas, right, new features, new product, and then we'll think about when is the right time. Then if it's proven to be a good user flow, then be able to possibly introduce that to our wallet. So yeah, so I think this will be a case by case. Maybe there will be, for example, when we engage with sports team, then maybe we will find new use cases that with which a particular user flow may fit better. Then maybe we will investigate into that.
Yeah, and if there's anything specific about our wallet, just grab us afterwards and let us know. Yeah, specific features or whatnot.
Hi, Todd again. Hey, two-part question, because I want two questions snuck in. The first one is, I noticed that sometimes what Theta would do to increase their value would be to have airdrops for subchains. Is that the plan going forward, and what does that look like for 2025? And then the second part of the question is, have you had any conversations with anybody named David Sachs or anybody from the Department of Government Efficiency to make maybe computing power cheaper?
Yeah, not personally, although we definitely will be. I think every crypto company is going to be trying to establish a relationship with it. We're pretty apolitical about these things. We just want to see crypto do well. Yeah, we definitely have some shared investors that are friendly with him. That would be likely who we're trying to speak with and develop a relationship there. And I think if we can also put our heads together and probably propose some pretty interesting frameworks for U.S. regulations as well, considering we've been on the other side of it for 8 years, understanding how it works. We'd like to be part of that conversation.
On that note, actually, I saw Jerry posted a tweet the other day that he has a great conversation with a ex-New York city mayor, something. Maybe Jerry can comment more on that.
You had a two-part question, right? What was that first part again? Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, the airdrop. So we envision the airdrops being an important part of the ecosystem, but really it's partner dependent, right? So they can decide to airdrop or not. I do believe that some of these larger partners that we're speaking to, if they launch their subchain and it's part of their ecosystem to engage fans and sort of be that reward point system and whatnot, then that might be incentive for them to airdrop something. But again, it's highly dependent sort of on their view of sort of this Web3 communities. Remember, a professional sports team that got that many fans, they may not be crypto savvy, right? Exactly. So even if you were to airdrop to anybody that gets a wallet or that uses the product, or to the validators and the stakers, right? Yeah, again, that's also very project dependent. I believe that, for instance, Theta has done a terrific, Levita did a terrific job, and I believe the Levita airdrop is completed. Is that true? I believe so, yeah. It's completed, and yeah, we'd love to see more of that.
I got the mic. So I might put you on the spot with the question, but I did get to ask it last year too. And that was about the price of Theta. So we've seen Bitcoin make new all-time highs. We're up over 30%. We've got Theta at $3, which is roughly, 80% down from the highs. And I know that you can't easily answer this question. So I'm just curious of your opinion, like last year, what do you think of the token price today for the actual valuation of what we're seeing being built on chain?
That's a great question. And if you remember, in the past few years, I would have said that I can't comment on token price, but now I think I can. With Trump and the new administration, I'm a lot more free to talk about this stuff. I think it's a rotation. I'm a person, this is my opinion. I don't know, Wes or Jay. I'm of the opinion that these 4-year cycles is very clear, and we're clearly in a bull market. Although this time around, it's changed a little bit, right? The timing of it all changed a little bit. I believe in rotation. I believe if you're a top altcoin in the top 100, top 50, we will get sort of, Bitcoin's at 100, right? Roughly, right? And it's all-time high. Ethereum is getting close. It did okay last few days, right? It's almost 4 now. So maybe it's at 80%, right? And then you have some of the layer ones that have done quite well. I think Tron has done quite well. Ripple, of course. And my personal belief is that there will be another plateau to Bitcoin, somewhere between 150 to 200 over the next few months. I may be wrong, by the way, so this is not financial advice by any means or anything. I can't see the future. I wish I could. And then I think that the rotation to Ethereum and to altcoins, first Ethereum needs to hit all-time high. I think it needs to surpass 5,000. I think it needs to run between 5 and 6. And then the altcoins, like ourselves, then gets the next level plateau. I think our next level could plateau somewhere between 6 and 7. Now, if we get lucky and our conversation all goes well, and then we get a U.S. exchange, let's say when we're approaching somewhere between $6 to $7, $8, $9, I think that's the right time for us to be in the U.S. exchange. That coincides with us potentially going live with this major sports team or sports teams or major esports, which a lot of U.S. users, then it comes together. Then utility goes in place for U.S. Fans and U.S. people, and they need liquidity to be able to access the token easily. All that, if it plays out, 25 would be massive. That's my personal opinion.
Just a quick follow-up question on that. So then, is the goal that you need to be kind of at that $7, $8, $9 mark to then get onto a listing like a Robinhood or Coinbase?
Oh,
or
no.
something like that,
I use that as an example. All right, I'm
Right.
just saying the ideal timing of all that stuff happening, because if we're, let's say hypothetically, if we were going to exchange today, we're sitting at $3, right? Right? And it might be interesting to go to 5 or 6. No, I'd rather for us to be at the 6 or 7 level and then to be on the exchange and for us to start pushing 10. Because once you start pushing 10, all-time high is not that far from that, right?
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, and on that, I just wanted to add that, while we do see that the rotation hasn't happened to Theta necessarily as much as some other alts, and I see it as a very different market than the 2017, 2018, even the 2020 and 21 sort of mini cycles there. It's a much more difficult one, certainly, and I think a lot of it is just the sheer amount of investable assets. When I started getting seriously into this space in 2016, there were only 50 to 100 even like halfway legitimate things you could put your money into. So for a given investor base, it's much more diluted now, to say nothing of, tens of thousands of meme coins that people are putting their money into. That doesn't mean that that it's what Mitch is saying is not possible. It's just it's not as easy to market as it was before. So we have to work harder and be smarter about how we approach this. My personal opinion is there is a lane for a project like ours that's making legitimate connections with these top enterprises in academia, and some people are going to be in the meme coin lane. That's fine. That's not an option for us to make a meme coin, so we have to go a different route, which is we think making something that appeals to legitimate enterprises around the world. And I think that that will be recognized if we're successful at that in with respect to rotation into Theta.
There's been a lot of talk, about edge cloud, edge compute, but you guys all started off with bandwidth sharing, and as you're getting more into sports, where there's a lot of streaming with the different organizations, and Amazon has NFL and stuff like that. Is that still part of your strategy? Like, how does that work into kind of what you guys are doing, and is that an avenue to get preloaded onto, Amazon and Google and stuff like that, to help them and not fail like the big Mike Tyson fight?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, the live experience that I talked about earlier, which is all about these sports and esports, is really big part of our strategy going in, and the opportunity is really to work with these organizations and then to power these interactive chatbots that's powered by this RAG technology. But it's more than that. It's then coming together and say that, look, it's about the live broadcast, right? It's all about streaming, right? I mean, right? These live tournaments, live matches, live game, live, and how do we tap into that? And remember way back when Jay and I were doing Sliver, I don't know if you guys remember Sliver TV, Theta TV, Sliver TV. We were doing productions in VR backstage using these huge GPUs and rendering these 4K, VR streams. And it's those kinds of live experience, but now applied sort of from an AI standpoint and be able to then increase fan experience. It brings it together, and also then the opportunity to then introduce peer-to-peer video sharing and bandwidth sharing as part of that overall platform. I think that's where it kind of comes together. That's where we like to see sort of the whole Edge Cloud platform. Because if you look at our Edge Cloud dashboard, our video and our streaming, the stuff is right next to the app. I mean, there's just two buttons right next to it. So the same people at these enterprises that's using our platform for the chatbot, they can go over here and be able to start experimenting and playing with that. So it's a very natural sort of onboarding process, right?
Hi. In order to attract the next 1,000 developers to build new applications on top of the Theta network, like additional to hackathons, are there ever strategies that you have to attract development, like, I don't know, perhaps community development funds or any other ideas?
Yeah, I would think to some extent it'll be aided greatly by some of these potential partnerships that we're working on, because I think one thing that was not as clear to me before was developers just want to be working on something that excites them. They're not generally doing it. I mean, they can be mercenaries and just doing it for a paycheck, but they have the option to work on a lot of different types of projects. They want something compelling to them. And so if we have the opportunity to collaborate with some of these other partners we're talking about, that can really be a draw. We had Google and Samsung representatives even just judging in the hackathon. That was, I thought, a nice touch because they got to interact with some of the users, and that was a big appeal to it. The money also matters too, because developers have to make a living. So we are looking into a development fund as well. We want to be smart about the structuring of it, because in the past, in our experience and for a lot of other crypto funds, it became basically a slush fund to give away and you don't get a real good return on it. But that's part of the conversations that Simon and Mitch and I were having earlier about the new structure for the hackathon prizes being ongoing funding for winning teams, and looking at more as being a support system rather than a one-time prize that they can win and then maybe they're not as committed as in the past or something like that.
Yeah, but I think the visibility that we got having Samsung and Google as judges was really important, right? Because they saw how much community involvement there was to it, and that's where it's kind of leading us to the conversation of these in real life sort of hackathon that's part of these conferences, right? As we look at next year, and how do they bring sort of their developer community, right, to build on our platform. Because, AWS has a very large sort of media segment, entertainment vertical segment that they focus on gaming as well, right? So they are in front of many of these same types of developers, and how do you then invite them or bring them to? So that's sort of the win-win there for us.
Yeah, so I want to add to that from a technical aspect that I also continue to push new features, right? Make it easier for developer to integrate with Edge Cloud, right? So the on-demand API I just mentioned is one example, right? Hopefully, will be just a couple line of code for any new developers to go on and then start to utilize Edge Cloud, right? And then another example is the Rec chatbot, so which we recently released, right? If you got a chance to use that, you'll find the process should be pretty easy, right? Just a couple click to set up a chatbot, and then you have an API endpoint, right, to do direct integration. So if you haven't checked it out for developers, then I'll encourage you to take a look, right? So and then we are pretty open to the feedback from the dev community. So if you think there's some feature gets you excited, and then right, or some kind of change to user flow make things much easier, then just let us know. Then we'll taking that into consideration, and then fold that into our next iteration of the product.
There is a question on Discord about what is Theta's plan for increased marketing, and they cited that there are other coins that are more active and engaged. Like, what is Theta's plan there for that?
Yeah, I can start, Wes. You can comment more, but we've been really careful in marketing, as you guys know, right? We do very little in the way of consumer marketing because we feel that, well, first of all, the best marketing would be primarily through our partners, right? It's the users, right? And when you're talking to specific and B2B basis, right, to some of these teams, it's not the traditional marketing. I think they might be referring to sort of crypto marketing. If we're gonna pay a YouTuber to shell our tokens, we don't want to do that, to be honest. We'd rather, and this is sort of a tangent to that, but there's a right time, in our opinion, to do that. We'd rather for us to be live, working with the Vegas Knights or whoever it is, and to use that use case for the YouTuber to cover that product offering as, wow, look at the Theta utility, right, of the platform, and it's powering this sort of this type of customer. And I think that's where we're gonna put our dollars to work. And yes, and so but the short answer is that we do have plans right now that we're talking about, fairly large. We're allocating a few $1 million worth to a community sort of influencer marketing campaign, but we're gonna be driving that not so much from just shelling Theta that's gonna be $10 because of whatever analysis they've done. Not that interesting in my opinion, but for them to focus on this is why you should be watching Theta because of these partnerships. And look, I played around with their chatbot, and it's powered by Edge Cloud, and this is amazing. And I see the community getting involved in sort of this, beta of decentralized edge. That's what we want them to cover, and that's our current plan going to the first half of next year.
Yeah, I guess just the only thing to add on that is we look at it as less of marketing as in selling this to a potential token holder, and more just about creating visibility, education about what Theta is and what it can offer to folks. So that's going to be sort of the theme and the discussion with these influencers.
So regarding the 4-year crypto cycle, do you think that's fueled more by the Bitcoin halving or the global liquidity cycle, a little bit of both? And with the global liquidity looking like it's going to top out in late 2025, it just seems like the perfect storm for everything to go crazy, and Theta is positioned so well. Just wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, it's I definitely think the Bitcoin cycle is the stronger of the two, but it's also hard to tell because we had, for most of crypto's life, and Theta's for that matter, low and stable rates. And so there's been a lot of variables trying to suss out how much of that is rate cuts versus rate hikes. I mean, we were part of this recent rise in Bitcoin, through the ETFs, and all this was through a rate hiking cycle. So it's very hard to pinpoint exactly how macro consistently applies to it, even though we know it's, of course, a factor in its correlations. I would lean more toward the Bitcoin cycle, but I also question how much that's going to be true going forward, just because, obviously you can do the math and see that Bitcoin can't increase logarithmically that much more before it is larger than all of the other assets on the planet combined. So I would love for it to double, every or quadruple every cycle, but that's just physically impossible. At some point, I think it'll turn into more of the I don't know if super cycle is the right term for it, but a steady state once it's a global asset. Like gold, for example, may have cycles and bull and bear markets, but it's not going to be this rigid forward one because a graph simply can't go up that direction forever.
Yeah, I think the 4-year. I mean, I think this time around there was also a little bit of a difference for Bitcoin is the adoption of Bitcoin, right? Certainly from ETF standpoint, which kind of opens it up to a bunch of not just individuals, but also family offices and et cetera, right? But also enterprise adoption. I mean, I don't know exactly what came out. What was the news on Microsoft? But if any Fortune 50, Fortune 100, right, were to adopt it as a reserve, in addition to MicroStrategy, then that becomes really, really interesting. And it's not part of the cycle, really. It's just fuel on top of it. That as well, right?
Yeah, because if that does happen, and I know Brazil is also considering that pretty seriously, I think you could see a race when every other central bank wakes up and says, "Oh shit, we don't want to be the last ones that don't have this." So it's like if somehow today no bank central bank held gold, and you saw the first one starting to accumulate it, you can buy it now or you can buy it at a much higher price later when you have to, because every other bank will. I think you very well could see that with Bitcoin as well. It could be happening already, because if I was a central banker, I'm obviously not, but I would think that they would be wanting to do it quietly and at least start building some exposure to it, and do it quietly at first so you don't spark a panic in the market. As a we don't strategically, but as a matter of course we do. But generally, I think we hold Bitcoin, but if we have assets that are not being used, we want exposure to Theta. Yeah. I don't think there's a better bet than that for us.
Okay. Hi, this is Crypto Smitty, and I've got two questions for you, one somewhat marketing and one down the science line. The first one has to do with marketing, and when you rolled out the Android app, and there's talk of 3 billion Androids on the market, what's being done? I mean, we obviously are not hitting a high penetration at this point compared to the overall availability. What's Theta's position to drive usage across that full Android spectrum?
Yeah, I could comment on that. So certainly 3 billion devices out there in total, right? I mean, marketing to the 3 billion, I hope that our message wasn't, that we didn't miscommunicate that. There wasn't intent to say that we are immediately getting 3 billion users, right? Let me be clear, that's not the case. However, I think the opportunity that sits in front of us, again, is through these partnerships. If we are able to get to the fans, right, to these teams and enterprises, then there's an opportunity to then establish relationship with them and bring them back into our ecosystem, into the fold, right? And for them to market to that group who may already have these reward points. Let's call it T-drop for the lack of a better. Maybe it could be rebranded to be something else. But what if, given that point balance, they need to do something with it? Maybe they need to download an app, right? Maybe that app just happens to be this, the same core as the mobile app. Oh, by the way, when you do that, you can earn more simply by sharing. And so it's sort of a different strategy where my previous life was in traditional mobile gaming, right? In the mobile gaming space, it's very hard to get users, and it's all about CPI, cost per install, and you do all these advertisements, and then you have to drive more revenue than the amount you spend. I don't think that's the best approach for us, to approach the 3 billion users. But I think through these partnerships, this is the opportunity that's ahead of us.
Okay. And the second question is a little more esoteric. And with the rolling out of, the Android or, trying to expand the nodes in whatever regard, have you looked forward into the possibility of integrate? You're obviously working with AI, which takes you to robotics. And then have you looked at the research that's going on with neurobiology and Theta's micropayments and being able to move into that field?
It sounds very scientific and futuristic to me. So thanks for bringing that up. So yeah, so very exciting. So robotics definitely. So you see, there are more and more companies going to this area, right? Tesla announced something, the humanoid, human-shaped robot, and definitely 10 years from now, the world will be really different. And maybe there will be robot, serving the conference here, right? So things like that. It's just like 10 years ago, you will never imagine the penetration of the cell phone. Will happen in the same way, right? So through those process, then we will be actively looking at different opportunities to expand Edge Cloud so that it can power more use cases, right? So as I mentioned earlier, so Edge Cloud, when we built it with a mindset that it will be a generic platform, right? It will not be just tailored for a certain vertical, but it will be generic. So hopefully when the time comes, then it will be able to power these new use cases, including the neuroscience, whatever development that, will come into reality. Yeah.
Well, I think what is interesting in the space we're in with the microtransaction type of architecture is you're able to slice. Think of it as anything out there that could be thought as a job, something that needs to be processed, something that needs to be done. But instead of done in one big chunk, but be able to then slice that into, let's say, 1,000 little pieces, and then for that to be highly distributed, and then for a payment to be made in the order of $0.0001, which is obviously not possible in fiat, but in digital currency, could very well be done. I think that's pretty interesting, right?
Yes, Mitch. You mentioned that Theta Labs was planning on into rolling some profits into buy more T-Fuel. Are you guys concerned that the value proposition of the Theta token is going to lag behind of T-Fuel?
Yeah, I can start, and Wes can comment on that. But our dual token design has always been, to be honest, always been a little bit tricky, right? It's very hard to model. Like if you think about even back in 2000 when JE was the architect, you can comment about this. We thought about modeling this in sort of fancy mathematical, and it got so complex, right? Because you have two tokens that have fluctuating values, and they're tied together in some shape or form through the stake and reward mechanism, right? And we're probably still one of the few projects that actually have a dual, where the staking rewards is different than the original token. However, I think what we learned is that the more utility that we can drive to T-Fuel, the more value it accrues to Theta staking, right? The staking. And when you drive demand for T-Fuel in terms of utility, more users needing it and therefore purchasing it and therefore driving the price up, and therefore the rewards on your staking of Theta also increases proportionally, which would then drive the price of Theta, right? And all of these partner activations is driven by, we're really thinking about T-Fuel as being front and center of that. Right.
So there's a question also on, I'm sorry, were you finished there? Or
Just to add one quick thing is you could argue at this point it's, I mean, what you're saying is quite possible in the future, and so it is something to think about. But at the moment, you could argue it's the opposite problem, because Theta staking yield notoriously has been has lagged, and one way to interpret that is it's because people have bid up the price of Theta relative to T-Fuel. So I don't know if it's as deliberate in the minds of investors as I'm making it out to be, but it seems in some ways they are valuing Theta too high relative to T-Fuel. But that's just one way to look at it.
So there's a question on the Discord. Sorry about my voice. There's all this screaming last night. There's a question that says, Mitch previously mentioned how hard it was to convince streaming services to use Theta as a replacement for their CDNs. Do you see this changing anytime soon, or is the short-term time frame focusing more on onboarding customers to the edge node and targeting unis, et cetera? Or unis, et cetera.
Yeah, that's a good question. The CDN business definitely changed a lot, right? Over the last few years, we definitely saw, to the Akamai's of the world, which is, very focused on content delivery and the pricing really coming down. And I think the opportunity that presents to us is certainly you have the streaming services like the Netflixes and whoever else are in the world, which obviously gets a huge amount of, they have a huge amount of users, and is exactly what their business is about, right? Streaming. But at the same time, in our experiences, you work with somebody like a Netflix. Well, first of all, they're not going to roll you out across the board, right? I mean, they're very sensitive to their core business, is streaming. They most likely it's going to start in a very small scale test, very specific geography and so on and so forth. Versus, let's look at sort of, again, back to sort of our strategy going after the sports teams and the gaming live streams, right? A lot of Twitch streams, right? For instance, right? A lot of influencers there. So we have, this is sort of the tangent areas to not just professional esports teams, but also, the streamers themselves, right? The influencers themselves in the gaming space. They each have, thousands, hundreds, millions of users. And these teams, for instance, at least in the US, professional teams have rights to local broadcast of their matches. A lot of it is controlled at the national level through the leagues, right? NFL, NBA, etc. That presents really an interesting opportunity for us that as we engage and establish relationships with these teams and team owners, that we can, through that, then get into and work with them on the sort of the video streaming part and to power some of these streams. And once we get that level of adoption, then I think we can have more of an opportunity to then go to the broader platforms, because there will be a proof point in place. And I think what we're trying to do is trying to short circuit, sort of this very lengthy, sort of trial basis and evaluation phase that you have to go through with the YouTubes and the Netflix and whatnot, through real world use cases, potentially in a much more compressed way. And I think if all works out, then potentially 25, this could be the year where we begin to see that, these platforms getting their attention, and then be able to sort of bring that full circle.
Thank you. I think we have time for one more question, like a real simple one, like a yes or no answer. No, I'm kidding. Does anybody have anything else? Anybody got another question? I'll take one more. Over here. Make it easy, Kyle. Here we go.
When Theta ETF?
When Coinbase, when Theta 100. No, but seriously.
Didn't expect that one, but look, if there's institutional demand for it, then someone will create a product for it. I don't know that we'd ourselves be going out there trying to spur that up at this point. But you could very easily see a world, especially with all these regulatory changes we're talking about, and just in general, more of the gloves off when it comes to financial regulation. You could see a lot more proliferate, even if we don't have a hand in it necessarily. I mean, look at ETFs generally, how it started out, you just had S&P 500 and NASDAQ, and now there's thousands of every kind of variety that you can imagine. Many of them far more degenerate than and speculative and risky than investing in crypto. So, yeah, if there's demand for it, I wouldn't be surprised to see 50 or 100 different crypto ETFs. It's just about providing access to users to a different asset class in a traditional market wrapper. I mean, you have every commodity of any note has its own ETF. Could very well see the same thing for crypto.
But just to finish, we gotta be in U.S. exchange before we do that. Yeah. We'll get our priority straight. Yeah.
Hey there. You guys have said you don't pay attention to price that much, but all of us watch the charts, right? I think we all watch the charts, and quite often it's that it's the narrative that's driving things, right? It's the hype. a lot of the times. There's a slow build and there's a long game that you guys are doing. I think we all respect that. But when it comes to these bull markets, when we're looking at price and chart dynamics, it's usually that one little piece of news that pushes something over the edge. Just when a chart needs that bump to break out of a resistance or something like that. And I've noticed in the last run that you guys were really good at putting out little pieces of news, or maybe big pieces of news like a Sony or something like that, when just when the chart kind of needed it. I don't want to ask if that's a big part of a strategy, but is it something that you're cognizant of? And is it something that is maybe little things get held on to for, when things need a bump?
That's a really good question too. I mean, we don't go into a strategic conversation, thinking about the timing, right? I think you were talking about the timing of it. However, we are certainly we recognize that there is the best time to announce a particular piece of news, right? There's the best time for us to, if we had the choice of, Robinhood comes to us, hey, we're ready to list, and we say, well, can we push this back by 2 weeks? Can we push this back by 2 months? Well, whatever the case may be, because we have some other global deal that's about to be dropped, either before or after. Absolutely. I mean, that's all part of, we have to think about it, right? But in order to be able to do that, you have to have a lot of things in the fire. I mean, because these things are out of our control, right? When things get signed off, I mean, these conversations, the lawyers alone, right? Again, if I don't have a job here, I'd be a lawyer, right? They make a lot of money. I mean, these things are pretty prolonged in their negotiations. But if the deal is done at that point, I mean, we have one or two that's being held up right now as we speak, for instance, right? Because the market is not quite where we think it is. Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, thank you all. Thank you, community, both here in person and also live watching the stream and commenting in Discord. So thank you all. Please give a hand here for Theta Labs. To Mitch, Wes, J.E., Simon, thank you. I really appreciate it. We've got plenty of Theta Labs community or team members here as well. You see them around. You saw Jerry and Andrea before. You see Will and Kyle. I know Gideon and Simon have been helping. Met a few others as well. So please do. They mean it. Go and talk to them. They will absolutely answer any questions when you're talking to them in front of them. So thank you all. Really appreciate it.